Honourable members, I am now prepared on the question of privilege raised by the member for Kent North. Mesdames et messieurs les députés, je suis maintenant prêt à me prononcer sur la question de privilège soulevée par le député de Kent North. In stating his question of privilege, the member referred to a report that was distributed to members of the Legislative Administration Committee in only one language at an in-camera meeting, which the member submitted was an obstruction of his ability to perform his duties as a member of the committee. The member further submitted that the said obstruction was a breach of his privileges as a member and gave notice of intention to move a motion calling upon the House to refer the matter to the Standing Committee on Procedure, Privileges, and Legislative Officers. Members, Standing Rule 9.3 is quite clear when it comes to questions of privilege. It states that the Speaker shall not accept such a motion unless satisfied that there is a prima facie case, meaning on first impression or at first glance, that a breach of privilege has been committed and that the matter is being raised at the earliest opportunity. If the Speaker is convinced these two conditions are satisfied, the member who has raised the question will be permitted to immediately move his motion, which will take precedence over all other business before the House. The Speaker's ruling does not extend to deciding whether a breach of privilege has in fact been committed. This is a matter which can only be decided by the House itself. Given that the committee meeting in question took place on February 18th, 2021, and the member raised the matter on the first day, March 17th, not including budget day, that the House has sat since that date, I am satisfied the matter has been raised at the earliest opportunity. Étant donné que la réunion de comité en question a eu lieu le 17 février 2021 et que le député a soulevé la question le premier jour, le 17 mars, au jour de dépôt du budget, où la Chambre a siégé depuis cette date. Je suis convaincu que la question a été soulevée à la première occasion. As has been submitted, on the day in question, the Office of the Clerk provided committee members with a 38-page draft report, technical in nature and prepared by a private sector entity. The draft report was only submitted by the private sector entity in one language. However, included with the report was a summary of its contents in both official languages, prepared and professionally translated by the Office of the Clerk. The office also scheduled a briefing on the report for committee members in both official languages. When the report was up for consideration, the member for Kent North raised his objection to the report only being in one language. As chair of the committee, I immediately set aside that item for consideration until all members had the draft report in both official languages. No further discussion took place on the report. Lorsque le rapport a été mis à l'étude, le député de Kent Nord a soulevé son objection à ce que le rapport ne soit disponible que dans une seule langue. En tant que président du comité, j'ai immédiatement mis de côté ce point à l'ordre du jour jusqu'à ce que tous les députés disposent du rapport préliminaire dans les deux langues officielles. Aucune autre discussion n'a eu lieu au sujet du rapport. Following the meeting, the clerk apologized to the member for Kent North for this oversight, assured him it would not be repeated, and discussed with the member how we can move forward with the resources at our disposal. The member was clear with his justified position that all documentation must be translated, and to that end, I am pleased to announce that we recently hired 2 new junior translators. But more needs to be done, and I commit to you that more will be done. The draft report in question has now been translated and was provided to all committee members on March the 9th, 2021. Le rapport préliminaire en question a maintenant été traduit et a été remis à tous les membres du comité le 9 mars 2021. I certainly understand the member's frustration for not initially receiving the draft in his language of choice, and I echo the clerk's apology and commitment to ensure that, going forward, members of the Legislative Administration Committee are provided with any and all documentation in their official language of choice before it is taken into consideration by the committee. In the year 2000, the practice at the House of Commons, with all of their resources, was to let a committee decide whether to accept and distribute documents from the public in only one language, pending translation, or wait for translation to be completed before the distribution of these documents. As the member for Kent North submitted, the practice now at the House of Commons in the year 2021 is to never distribute any document from the public excuse me, in one language. C'est le bar que nous devons attendre en tant qu'Assemblée législative de la seule province bilingue du Canada. Je comprends que la patience dans cette affaire n'est pas une option. Les députés ont des droits qui doivent être respectés, et je vous assure aujourd'hui qu'ils le seront. This is the bar we must meet as the Legislative Assembly of the only bilingual province in Canada. I understand patience in this matter is not an option. Members have rights that must be respected, and I assure you today they will be respected. There is no doubt in the statement that members are entitled to receive documents in the official language of their choice. At the same time, members of the public have the right to communicate with the parliamentary committee in their language of choice. Balancing these rights may be difficult and will require additional resources, but it is necessary and must be done to ensure we respect our language obligations. And more importantly, that we respect each other and all New Brunswickers. Now, with respect to the question of privilege and whether there is a prima facie case that a breach of privilege has been committed, I have reviewed the relevant authorities and a previous ruling by a well-respected Speaker of this House. During the first section of the 52nd Legislature, Madam Speaker Dysart found that a prima facie case did exist when a member was denied the translation of briefs presented to a select committee. The argument by the member at that time was similar to what has been argued in this matter. The lack of translation impaired the member's ability to fulfill her role on the select committee. However, there is one difference which I find significant. In the matter before us today, the member for Kent North was not denied the translation of the draft report. Instead, consideration of the report was immediately set aside until it could be translated, which has now taken place. And the translated report has been provided to all committee members. Pour cette raison, je conclus que le député n'a pas établi que la question à l'étude pourrait être jugée comme étant une obstruction à l'exercice de ses fonctions de député et, par conséquent, je dois conclure qu'il n'est pas établi qu'il y a eu de prime abord de violation de privilège. For that reason, I find the member has not established that the matter in question could be found to constitute obstruction from performing his duties as a member, and accordingly, I must find that a prima facie matter, privilege, has not been established. My ruling today should not be taken in any ways as diminishing the importance of the rights of members to use their official language of choice. As I previously stated, the Speaker's ruling on a question of privilege is limited to deciding whether the particular incident raised by the member warrants priority consideration over all other matters that are before the House. Ma décision d'aujourd'hui ne doit pas être considérée de quelque façon que ce soit comme diminuant l'importance du droit des députés à utiliser la langue officielle de leur choix. Comme je l'ai déjà dit, la décision du président sur une question de privilège se limitait à déterminer si cet incident particulier soulevé par le député mérite d'être examiné en priorité par rapport à toutes les autres questions dans la Chambre et celle-ci. Je tiens à remercier le député de Kent-Nord d'avoir soulevé cette importante question. Il est un ardent défenseur des droits linguistiques et un membre apprécié de cette Chambre, de cette Assemblée. À l'avenir, je veillerai à ce que les membres du comité d'administration de l'Assemblée législative reçoivent tous les documents dans la langue de leur choix. Et je conseille aux autres comités de la Chambre d'en faire de même. I want to thank the member for Kent North for raising this important matter. He is a strong advocate for language rights and a valued member of this Assembly. Going forward, I wish to reiterate once again that I will ensure that members of the Legislative Administration Committee receive all documentation in their language of choice, and I advise other members and other committees of this House to do the same. Thank you. Je vous remercie.